Hey, what's up, guys? What's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings NBA video for Monday, February 22nd. We're going to talk about 4 guys who we're looking to target here today. Some of them are in the mid-range. One of them is somebody that I'm willing to pay up on today. There's not a lot of options up at the top end that I really love to pay up for, but there are a lot of options in the middle that I think we can get in there. So I do think we're going to be able to choose from which high-price guys we do want to put into our rosters at the end of the day. So let's call up the slideshow and take a look at some of the guys who we are looking at. The 4 guys who we're looking at right now are Luol Deng at 5,800, Mirza Teletovic at 4,500, Jabari Parker at 5,900, and Karl-Anthony Towns at 8,500. Hold on one second here because I can't get this to switch over. Give me 1 second here. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the slideshow today. Let's try this again. All right, so those are the 4 guys that we're looking at. The first guy we're going to talk about is Luol Deng at 5,800. He has a matchup with the Indiana Pacers today. Chris Bosh is out with blood clots for the Miami Heat, and Dwayne Wade has missed the last 2 games as well. With both Bosh and Wade out, Deng has put up 53 and 49 fantasy points in his last 2 games since the All-Star break. He's averaging 35 minutes, 28 real-life points, and 10 rebounds in those 2 games. And he's now become the #1 option with the injuries that the Miami Heat has, and his price is still pretty cheap. There's a total of 200 on this game, so it's not incredibly low. And again, if Deng is going to be the guy who's doing the scoring, we really need to see probably about 35, 36 fantasy points out of him. He doesn't need to get another double-double here, but if he can get us 22 to 23 points, pick up a couple steals, a couple assists, and add in another 7 or 8 rebounds, which has actually been below what he's been producing since the All-Star break, he's still going to get us a good return of 36 to 40 fantasy points, which will be more than enough for 6 or 7x for us. So I do think Luol Deng is going to be one of the guys that makes his way onto a lot of my rosters, both cash and GPP, provided that Dwayne Wade is out. If Wade is in, that's definitely going to affect the upside for Deng, and would probably make him somebody who I'd only be looking at, in maybe a tournament or 2. The next guy we're going to talk about is Mirza Teletovic. He's in a high-paced game with a high total against the LA Clippers. Since Markieff has been gone and Tyson Chandler is banged up, Mirza has seen 32 minutes per game since the All-Star break. He's averaging 32 fantasy points in those 2 games, and he's just way too cheap for his new role. Now, at 4,500, I think he's just one of those guys that you got to plug in there because he is going to see minutes and can put up points. Now, he is somebody who's going to score probably like 12 to 15 real-life points, probably hit 1 or 2 3-pointers for you, maybe grab 6 or 7 rebounds. So it's not like we're expecting 50-point game here out of Mirza, although he does have that kind of an upside. With all the problems that the Suns have at their front court, though, I do think it's a good spot for him and a really, really nice price on DraftKings at only 4,500. Next guy we're going to talk about is Jabari Parker. He's got an ideal matchup versus the LA Lakers. Lakers have played over 230 points in each of their last 3 games, so I expect this game to even go to the over of what's already expected to be like a 210-point game between these 2 teams. Now, Parker's been playing close to 40 minutes a game, and he even had 51 minutes the other night in the 2 overtime game. So even in regulation, he was still seeing that 40, and, it's nice to see that even in overtime, they're still giving this kid big minutes finally. He's put up over 40 fantasy points consistently in those last 3 games where he's seen 40 minutes. And, basically with Jabari Parker, the problem we've had all season is that he hasn't been seeing big minutes. When he sees the minutes, he tends to produce. And right now he's been producing because he is seeing those minutes and getting them and doing a lot with them. So if we can get 35 to 40 fantasy points out of Jabari Parker at 5,900, that's going to be 6 to 7x value for a guy who, again, we've seen the minutes tick up. We've seen the fantasy production tick up. The price is the one thing that hasn't really come with it. So I still want to take advantage of it while it's cheap. Now, the center spot, it was tough for me to decide between Al Horford and Karl-Anthony Towns, who are 2 guys that I like. But since a lot of the other options we gave you were pretty cheap, I figured we had the money to spend up on Towns today. If you wanted to roll both of those centers out in a 2-center game, you're not going to get any arguments from me. But the reason why I ultimately decided on Towns is he's got the 2nd highest total on the day versus the Boston Celtics for this matchup with Minnesota. And Boston has been horrible all season long at trying to stop big men. Big men have put up huge numbers against them pretty much all season. And lately, Towns has been an absolute monster. He had 48 points in his last game, 40, 57, 37, and 55 in his last 5. So if you look at those numbers, he's basically averaging close to 46, 47 fantasy points a game over his last 5, which is about what we would need out of him at a $8,500 price tag. I agree with you. The price tag has gotten up there, but I do think he's got a floor of around 40 fantasy points today, which would still be about 5x on his price. And I think that he's one of the few guys that's worth paying up for. He has double-doubles in 14 of his last 18 games. And in the games where he missed a double-double, he's never had less than 8 rebounds. So he had 2 games with 8, 2 games with 9, and the other 14 of his last 18 have been games with double-doubles. He's starting to score more. They're starting to use him more on the offensive end. They even had him running off screens like he was a jump shooter in the last game, like setting double screens for him so he can catch the ball and curl into the lane, and hit that little short jump shot. So if he's going to be this big a part of the offense and his rebounding numbers are going to be this good, and he's going to be seeing the 35 minutes a game that he's been seeing lately, I still think even at 8,500 that Karl-Anthony Towns is a pretty good bet tonight. So that's basically the way that I see it. Those are the guys who I'm going to be looking at, and those are the guys that I'm going to be targeting for most of my daily fantasy rosters tonight. Like I said, I do like having some exposure to that Golden State and Atlanta game as well. Al Horford is the way I'm looking to do that. If I don't use Horford, I'm also looking to see if Jeff Teague is in, because if Jeff Teague happens to be out tonight, I think Dennis Schroeder becomes a really shrewd play at only like 54, 5,500 on DraftKings if he's going to see 30 to 35 minutes of action in a high total, high pace game against the Golden State Warriors. So like I said, I want to make sure I try to get some exposure to that game, but these other guys who we talked about are some of the best value options that we see out there on the day, and I do want to make sure I have exposure to them as well, especially if Wade is out. So thank you guys for joining us here at rotocurve.com, and as always, stay classy, DFS.